Hi there. Welcome to today's webinar using social as a civic engagement tool presented by Social News Desk and Civil. Together, these two platforms share a common mission, helping government communicators build stronger, more authentic relationships with the communities they serve. And we're excited to welcome so many folks to our webinar today. If you have questions, please drop those into the Q&A as we go through today, and time permitting, we'll answer those at the end.
And before we get started, just a little bit about us. Social News Desk empowers critical communicators with powerful, secure social media management and archiving software trusted by more than 10,000 professionals. We were founded in 2010, and since then, we've proudly supported America's largest news companies, cities, government agencies, school districts, universities, and businesses who require powerful, always on social media tools.
And Cival is a civic engagement platform for local government. We give cities, counties, and special districts one place to manage their website, social media, email, SMS, and public records with built in archiving for compliance. We're backed by more than 15 years of experience serving 2,000 plus organizations through Social News Desk, and we're now purpose built for government. And just a little bit about me. I'm Sarah Lloyd, the head of product success and evangelism here at Social News Desk and Civol, based in San Antonio, Texas. And I've been with the team for about 11 years now. And prior to joining SND, I managed social media and worked in several newsrooms. And I was actually a Social News Desk customer before I joined the team. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. The address is there on the screen. And today I have Kelly Papendick from our client success team joining us. So, Kelly, please introduce yourself.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I am a client success manager here at SND based in Naperville, Illinois. I've been with the company for over 5 years after spending more than 15 in digital media and customer service. I'm also a former news producer and SND client myself. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
All right. So before we dive in, I'd love to get a quick read on who's in the room. And I know we have folks from cities, counties, and other government agencies here, but your day to day challenges can look really different depending on your team size, your community, and what platforms you're working with. So I've launched a quick poll. What's your biggest social media challenge right now? And I'd encourage you to take a couple of seconds to respond. Our choices are low engagement on our posts, keeping up with multiple platforms, getting residents to trust or follow our accounts, and knowing what content to post. All right, we'll leave that up for just a couple more seconds. Looks like we have some votes coming in here. All right, I'm seeing most people are having trouble with low engagement on our posts, and that's really helpful context. And honestly, a lot of what we're going to cover today speaks directly to that. So great timing here.
So let's go ahead and start with the uncomfortable truth. If you're feeling like your social media isn't performing the way it should, like you're putting content out and it's disappearing into the void, you're not imagining it and it's not just you. Government content faces a real structural disadvantage on almost every major social platform. Algorithms are built to surface content that drives emotional reactions and personal connection. An update about a road closure or a public meeting notice doesn't naturally compete with a friend's vacation photos or a viral video. On top of that, trust in government at every level has been declining for years. Residents are skeptical, they're tuning out. And that means the bar for government communicators to actually break through has never been higher. But here's what I want you to take away from this slide. This is not a reason to give up on social. It's a reason to use it differently. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about here today.
So, for a long time, the goal of government communications was pretty simple: get information out to the public, issue a press release, post an announcement, update the website. And of course, social media got added to that stack as just another channel for broadcasting the same messages. But that model is broken, not because the information isn't valuable, but because residents just don't want to be talked at. They want to feel like participants, not just recipients. So, the shift I'm going to ask you to make today is from broadcast to dialogue. It sounds simple, but it requires a genuine change in how you think about every post, every response, and every platform. The question stops being, how do I get this information out? And becomes, how do I invite residents into this conversation? When residents feel heard, When they see that their input actually shapes decisions, trust grows. And trust is the foundation that makes everything else in government communications easier, faster, and more effective.
So, how do you actually do it? We're going to walk you through 5 concrete tactics that we see working for government communicators right now. These aren't theoretical best practices pulled from a textbook. They're things that real city and county teams are doing today to build stronger relationships with their residents through social media. We'll spend a couple of minutes on each one and give you examples so you can picture what it actually looks like in practice. Let's go
Yep.
ahead and get started.
Yeah. So, tactic one is listen before you post. And we do mean this literally. Before you sit down to write your content calendar, spend time reading what your residents are already saying. What are they complaining about in Facebook comments? What questions keep coming up on Nextdoor? And what are they tagging your department in? This is free, unfiltered community research, and most government teams aren't using it anywhere near enough. Using social listening tools like S&D's Search and Listen, as well as Inbox, can help cities easily monitor conversations and understand what residents are asking in their comments or messages. Here's a real example of what this looks like in practice. Imagine your team notices a spike in comments and Nextdoor posts about project delays at a local playground. Rather than waiting for a formal complaint process, your parks department proactively posts: the playground is currently undergoing safety improvements that should be ready in time for spring break. We know our littlest residents are excited to play once again. Thank you for your patience as we work to ensure Fairview Park is a destination for families for years to come. That's it. No big announcement, no press release, but what you've done is show residents that you're paying attention, that you're responsive, and that social media is actually a useful channel for communicating with their government. And that builds trust faster than just about anything else.
Tactic 2 is probably the easiest one to implement starting tomorrow. Just invite participation from your residents. Participation based content, polls, open ended questions, fill in the blank prompts, almost always outperforms straight announcements and engagement because people love to share their opinions, especially when it feels like someone in authority might actually read them. The key is to make it low effort for residents. A Facebook poll with 2 or 3 options takes 5 seconds to answer and can generate hundreds of responses. You don't always have to tackle big civic issues either. Some of the highest engagement posts from government accounts are delightfully low stakes. A city asking residents to vote on a name for a new snowplow, like this post from the Minnesota Department of Transportation, or a transit agency asking what their riders listen to on their commute, or even a post like this one from the San Antonio Public Library asking people which library resource, quote, fits their vibe. These feel fun, but they're actually doing real work. They're a low effort way for residents to see your social channels as a two-way street. And once you've built that habit, you can ask those bigger questions about budget priorities, service improvements, community concerns, and people will actually respond.
Yeah. So, tactic three is to close the loop and show residents that they were heard. This is the tactic that most government teams skip entirely. And in my opinion, it's the most powerful one on the list. So here's the pattern we see all the time. A city runs a community survey or fixes a problem or helps out a resident in need and then never tells the public what happened. From a resident's perspective, they took the time to give you feedback and it vanished into a black hole. They have no idea if anyone read it, let alone acted on it. And that erodes the very trust you're trying to build. We love this post from Chatham County Animal Services sharing the story of a cat named Schroeder that was stuck on a bridge and eventually returned to his owners. Schroeder's family sent a thank you gift and a handwritten card to recognize the CCAS team's efforts. It's a great full circle moment, and sharing it on social helps to affirm the department's mission for their followers. Closing the loop means going back to your audience and saying, you asked us about this, we did this, here's what we did next. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Even a simple post like this one from the Blaine, Minnesota Police Department is enormously effective. They shared the results of their community winter coat drive, which drove friendly competition between several police agencies, but was also a huge win for the community with nearly 1,000 coats collected. This post shows that residents that participation leads to real outcomes. And when people believe their input and participation matters, they show up again next time.
Tactic 4, right message, right platform, is about platform strategy and being intentional about matching your message to where your audience actually lives. A lot of government teams post the same content everywhere, which is understandable given limited capacity, but it means you're not fully serving anyone. Each platform has a distinct audience and a distinct content culture. For example, Nextdoor is incredible for hyper local, neighborhood level communication. Things like road closures, local events, or community safety updates, like this weather alert from the San Antonio Fire Department. The people on Nextdoor are often your most engaged, locally invested residents. Facebook remains the broadest reach platform for most government audiences, skewing towards homeowners and older residents. Great for event promotion, policy updates, and anything where you need wide distribution. The city of Wentzville, Missouri shares tons of content, ranging from helping residents learn how to use water usage apps to fun things to do at city facilities on leap day or really any time of the year. Instagram and TikTok are where you can show the human side of your team, those behind the scenes photos, visual impact stories, infrastructure, before and afters. It tends to reach younger residents who may not engage with you anywhere else. The mayor of Toledo, Ohio, shared this video on Instagram, tying the city to The Office spinoff, which was the paper and actually set in Toledo. It showed the mayor enjoying his morning paper, and it was a huge hit on social. And then YouTube, or any video content more broadly, is underutilized in government. But shorter explainer videos about how to navigate city services or recordings of public meetings with timestamps can be genuinely valuable resources that live on long after you post them. This hurricane preparedness workshop from the city of Mount Bellevue, Texas, lives on as a great resource for residents to stay prepared in the future. Now, keep in mind, you do not have to be everywhere, but wherever you are, make sure that you're showing up in a way that fits that platform's culture.
That's great advice. So, the last tactic is about voice, and it might be the one that requires the most internal culture change to pull off. You want to sound human, not official. Government communications has a long tradition of formal, careful, legally reviewed language, and there are absolutely contexts where that's appropriate. But on social media, that voice creates distance. This post from the San Antonio River Authority on Nextdoor matches the soothing vibe of the video, which also shows off the sights and sounds of the San Antonio River and encourages residents to participate in their basin meditation program right from their device. And when a resident posts a frustrated comment about a pothole that's been there for 3 months and your department responds with, "Thank you for your inquiry. Your concern has been logged and will be addressed in accordance with our maintenance schedule," that resident just feels like they're talking to a wall. Compare that to, "Hi, Kelly, we hear you. That's been there too long. We've flagged it for our crew and it's scheduled to be fixed next week. Thanks for the nudge." Same information, totally different relationship. Check out these examples from Wentzville, Missouri. The city was rolling out new solid waste carts and answered resident questions directly and warmly, building goodwill with their resident customers. So, a few principles here: use a conversational tone, acknowledge the emotion behind a complaint before jumping to the answer, and respond fast. A timely, imperfect response almost always lands better than a polished one that takes 3 days. If your team has concerns about tone approvals or liability, that's really a process conversation that's worth having internally because the cost of sounding robotic on social is real and residents notice. The city of Princeton, Texas answered questions about treatments for icy roads during a weather event in a direct, timely fashion, letting residents know they're addressing the situation and also addressing the frustration that residents were feeling.
So, how do you streamline the process of keeping your residents engaged on social? Everything we talked about in tactic one, listening before you post, starts here. Search and Listen and social is Social News Desk's social listening tool, and it lets you monitor topics related to your community across Facebook, X, and Instagram. But what makes it genuinely unique for government communicators is our exclusive Nextdoor integration. Nextdoor is where your most locally engaged residents are already talking about their neighborhoods, their concerns, their frustrations, and most social tools can't touch it. With SND, you can see those conversations alongside everything else. That way, you're not flying blind on the platform that arguably matters most for civic engagement. It's the difference between guessing what your community cares about and actually knowing. Consistency is one of the hardest parts of government social media, especially for small teams. The calendar gives you a single view of everything scheduled across all your platforms, so you can plan ahead, spot gaps, and make sure you have the right mix of content going out at the right times. When we talked about meeting residents where they are and matching your message to the right platform, this is the tool that makes that manageable in practice. Instead of logging into four different platforms and hoping nothing slips through the cracks, you've got one place to see your entire content plan at a glance and make adjustments as priorities shift.
And one of the real challenges in government communications is that posts often need to go through an approval process before they go live, and that can slow everything down, or if it breaks down, let something out the door that really shouldn't have gone out. Approvals builds that review workflow directly into S&D so your team can draft, flag for review, and get sign off without the back and forth of email chains and shared documents. It's a great way to check posts for the appropriate brand voice, platform suitability, legal review, or all three. And it keeps your content quality high and your team accountable without creating that kind of bottleneck that makes responding in a timely way impossible. We spent some time on tactic 5, responding like a neighbor, and this is where that happens. The inbox pulls together comments and direct messages from across all your platforms into one place so nothing gets missed. For government teams, that's a bigger deal than it might sound. A resident who reaches out on Facebook and doesn't hear back, or who DMs your Instagram and gets silence, walks away feeling ignored, and that erodes the kind of trust you're working to build. When your whole team is working out of one shared inbox, you can respond faster, divide the workload, and make sure every resident who takes the time to reach out actually hears from you. And of course, you can't improve what you can't measure, and reporting gives you a clear picture of what's working and what isn't across all of your platforms in one dashboard. We talked about closing the loop with residents, but there's an internal version of that too. Closing the loop with yourself and your leadership about whether your social strategy is actually delivering. Are your engagement posts performing better than your announcements? Which platform is driving the most meaningful interaction? Where are you losing people? Reporting helps you answer those questions so you can make smarter decisions about where to put your energy and, when you need to, make the case to leadership that this work is worth investing in.
And if you'd like to learn how to measure the impact of your social media strategy on your residents, check out this blog post from Cival for an actionable guide to get started. You can go ahead and just scan the QR code that you see here on the screen to access that blog post directly, or go ahead and take a quick screenshot for later.
Yeah, and I hope you're walking away with at least one idea that you can put into practice this week. Even if it's just committing to spending 15 minutes a week on social listening or trying one participation based post this month, small shifts in how you approach this can make a real difference over time. And before we get into our Q&A, if you'd like more information about Social News Desk for social media management, visit socialnewsdesk.com. And for more on Cival, our new civic engagement platform, please visit us at cival.com. That's CIVALL.com. So now let's get into some Q&A. Our first question here, We're a small team, maybe one or two people managing comms. How do we realistically do all of this? So, this is super common. We work with a ton of teams that are one and two people, and you really don't have to do all five tactics at once. Really start with one. And if I had to pick the biggest impact, lowest effort place to start, it's probably tactic number two, which is just ask a question. One participation based post a week takes maybe 10 extra minutes to write, and it can really dramatically change your engagement numbers. And once that becomes a habit, you can layer in things like social listening and then work toward closing the loop. And small teams can absolutely do this. It's really more about intention than volume. All right. Kelly, I'm going to pitch this next question to you. Should we be on every platform, or is it okay to focus on just one or two?
Kind of just as you talked about, it's absolutely okay. And honestly, better to do two platforms really well than five platforms poorly. The question to ask is, where does your specific community actually live online? Do that research, do that homework. For most municipal governments, Facebook and Nextdoor cover the vast majority of your engaged residents. And then I would say that if you do have a capacity for a third, Instagram is worth it for that visual storytelling aspect. But again, do not spread yourself too thin trying to maintain that or even a TikTok presence if your team is already stretched out.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely don't want to like stretch your team out too thin. If you're just one person, pick one, pick two, but you don't have to do everything all at once. All right. This is a great question. How do we get residents to actually follow our accounts in the first place? So this is really kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? Which comes first? You want to engage your residents on social, but first you have to get them there. And some of the most effective approaches are things like cross promotion through the channels that you already own. So, your website, email newsletters, inserts into utility bills, and even physical signage at city buildings. QR codes linking to your social profiles have worked really well for some teams, but honestly, the best organic growth tool is just posting content that residents want to share with their friends and neighbors. A name your park poll, a behind the scenes photo of a road crew, a feel good community story like Schroeder the cat. And when your followers share it, their neighbors see it, and that's how you really grow organically. All right. Our last question here. Is it appropriate for government accounts to have a personality, or does that feel unprofessional? Kelly, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely okay to have a personality. And I'd even push back on the idea that personality and professionalism are opposites. Really, some of the most effective government social accounts have a distinct voice that feels warm, dry, or even a little playful without ever crossing into anything inappropriate. Think about how MTA or even the National Park Service might share something self aware and get thousands of shares. That kind of humanness builds goodwill that formal announcements never could. The key, however, is consistency and again, knowing what your community's tolerance is. So, for example, a smaller rural community might want a warmer, more personal tone, whereas a large metro area might lean drier and wittier. Either way, residents are going to be responding to a voice that sounds like a person and more so than one that sounds like a policy document.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I think that's all the questions that we have. So we're going to end it here. Thank you all so much for your time and attention today. Kelly, thank you so much for co hosting. Always a pleasure to have you with me. And
Thank
hope
you.
you all have a great rest of your day.